Hello, and welcome to this edition of People in Transition. I'm your host, Bob Gerst. I've been hiring, firing, and mentoring executives, frontline employees, interns, and job seekers in companies around the world through a host of transitions, some difficult, but most very good. I work with people in Hong Kong, India, Australia, and across the United States. What sets them apart? A lot, but there's more they have in common. And one of those commonalities is transition is a part of life. This experience has given me a bird's eye view on a variety of trends, economies, industry disruptors, and transitions that are big and small. It also brought me into contact with the thought leaders and decision makers you need to meet, the people who can make the difference that matters to you right now. Imagine knowing exactly what to do next and how to know it's time to make your big change. The insight track you're going to access during our future episodes is better than a crystal ball. It's the exact information you need to take that next step. Whether you're a new grad applying for your first professional job, someone looking to transition your work experience into a promotion, launching your own company, or maybe even starting to plan your retirement, you're in transition, and this series is for you. We all know transition can be scary, but it doesn't have to be. And it's even fun when you have VIP access to the future you want. Are you tired of the uncertainty of being passed up? We'll share with you the tools and skills that can take your dreams to the front of the line. So, if change is on your horizon, or maybe just the thought of change, you won't want to miss this discussion. It could be the exact edge you need to turn transition into an amazing opportunity. Tami Jaffe, I am so excited to have you on this episode of People in Transition. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Bob. It's great to be here.
Tami, when you were younger, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Such a great question. I grew up on a farm in Michigan, and I think the one thing I knew I didn't want to be was a farmer. It was seeing my dad work all these hours and lose 1 year of crops to a drought and the next year to a flood, and seeing the struggle he went through. I was like, okay, I don't want to be a farmer. So what do I want to do? I was always told I was good at math, so accounting was always kind of in the back of my mind. But what I really wanted to be was someone in international business. And that was always at the back of my mind. I was looking at colleges for international business, and that was where I always wanted to focus.
And what were the transition moments that you went through to take you from that young girl with that picture of you being in international business to where you're at today?
For me, I went into accounting initially. So I became a CPA. I call myself a recovering CPA now, and started working my way up through the accounting and finance world, made several career transitions along the way, and did some customer service, project management. And my last corporate job was I was the head of real estate technology for the third largest real estate company in the world. Throughout that, what I realized was I loved being a leader. I loved helping people. I loved mentoring people. And it was through that process that was like, I want to help more people. And so initially I thought I was going to be on this path to just keep working my way up, And I got into senior leadership roles and realized I wanted something even more. And what I love about what I do now and helping other people to go through their big transitions of going from employees to entrepreneurs and being able to not only replace their income, but exceed it so that they can have a successful business is I do work with people all over the world now. And so now I can say I am an international business owner and I speak all over the world. I get to share my message with people all over the world. It took me a while of kind of maneuvering through the careers and through different transitions to get there. But I finally feel like I can say, yes, now I am in international business.
Tami, what are some of the signs that either you went through yourself or that you've seen in some of your clients
that a good job is going bad and it's time to make a change?
Yeah, one of the first signs is when you are getting up Monday morning and you do not want to go into the office, there's something wrong, right? There's something happening, or you don't want to, now so many people are working remotely. You don't want to get onto those calls and do the work. And so, that's one of the initial signs that it's just there's something not right. You're really stressed out. When you get really stressed out, it starts impacting your body and you've got the chronic pain going on, or you may find you're going through some type of disease or having problems in certain areas with your health because the stress takes a toll on you. And you're just not satisfied with what you're doing. You're not satisfied with what's happening anymore. And sometimes that's the satisfaction of like the actual job itself, and you want to do something different with the job. Sometimes you actually like your job. I liked what I did in corporate. I liked the people I worked with. I had an amazing team, but for me, it was some of the politics and realizing that I didn't want to have to continue working for someone else's dream. I wanted to work for my own dream and be able to support other people in getting to theirs. So I think when you're looking at what are those signs, there's a lot of them. I always say the signs like waving at you, right? Where's your stress level at? Are you satisfied with what you're doing? Looking at some of those things that are happening to you and around you, say, is it time to stop and assess where you are? Time to stop and say, is there something different? Is there something better? Is there something bigger that I'm supposed to be doing?
So let's say that you've seen some of these signs that you just mentioned, yet you're hesitant to make a change. What is holding people back? If they're aware that they're under stress, if they're aware that they don't like that Monday morning 8:00 call, that they're not satisfied, yet they don't make a change, what's holding them back?
One of the biggest things I see holding people back is that they feel secure, at least with the paycheck coming in and the consistency of what they're doing. And that fear around making that shift, making that change, that they can actually do it, that they can do something different and still make the same amount of money or more. Even if it's making a career change, it doesn't have to be starting your business. The security of where they are sometimes is more comfortable to them than the fear of having to go find something else, the fear of being rejected, of not getting the new job, the fear of not being able to have that consistent income coming in right away if they start their business, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to do it. And so holding on to what is familiar, what does feel, even though it may not be something you enjoy and love, in some ways feels a little safe, and knowing that you just have to show up. And so it's a lot of times it's not until that pain and discomfort of where you are gets to a point that overrides the fear of actually stepping out and doing something different that people will actually make a change.
So what would you coach one of your clients as to that first step that they need to take into the fear of the transition? What's that first step that you coach them to take?
The first step is making the decision. Sitting in that undecided place is hurting you as much as it is your body and everything around you. And so first it's just stepping into, what's the decision that you want to make? Is it that you want to do something different? Is it that you want to start your own business? Getting to the point of just deciding that you're going to go for something different, that you're going to go for something bigger, you're going to go for something better. And once you truly make the decision, because a lot of people say they've made the decision, but they're not doing anything about it. They're not moving forward. And the truth is, the decision they made was to stay where they're at. The decision they made was to not get out of their comfort zone. The decision they made was that it's easier to stay where they are than to do something else. But that's not always true. And in the end, you'll thank yourself when you finally make the decision, yes, I'm going to go after this. Yes, I'm going to make a transition. Yes, I'm going to do something bigger and better. And then once you've made the decision, it all starts with getting clarity on what it is, how you're going to do it, who can help you and support you in those things. And that's when you start to get more confident and courageous to step out and do it.
Let's go down the path of, you have made the decision, it's time for a change. You take that first step and into fear, and you've decided that you don't want the traditional corporate role, that you want to own a business, own a franchise, be a solopreneur, not that traditional role. What's the steps, the 2, 3, 4 steps that you suggest to that person?
Yeah, I actually talk about this in my latest book, Business Boost, Volume 3, in the chapter I wrote in this book about what are those first 3 things that you need to do when you want to, I call it speed up your startup. You want to speed up the process of getting your startup going. And the first thing is that you have got to be really clear on who it is you're helping and how you're helping them. What is that problem you are solving for people? What is the one thing that's going to make a difference for the people that you're going to help? So getting really clear on the business that you want to start, getting really clear on what that is and how you're going to serve those people. And the second thing I talk about is don't get caught up with all of the shiny object syndrome. As soon as you put that entrepreneur hat on and say, yes, I'm going to start a business, you are like flagged on every platform out there. And all of a sudden you are getting targeted on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and every place you go. It seems that they know that you've now made this decision. You're like, all of a sudden, you're like getting these messages saying, I've got the formula that's going to make you millions, or I've got the one thing that you have to do. And it's the only thing that's going to work to get your business going. And you start getting targeted by all these things that aren't necessarily right for the startup. And so knowing what you need to do when you're getting started is so critical. Knowing those first steps and when to introduce different marketing strategies and different tactics into your business is so important, because otherwise you can waste a lot of time and money. And I see that happen a lot with people where they'll buy all these programs and do all these different things, and they spend all this time kind of behind the scenes trying to build out a funnel or trying to build out a process, or just taking courses and trying to learn and absorb, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it keeps you from actually going and doing the things you need to do to start bringing income into your business so that you can leave your job and actually go full time into your business. And so avoiding the shiny objects by knowing what to do. The way that you do that is the third thing I talk about, which is learning from those who have done it before. That is the quickest and best way to speed it up, to speed up that process, to get really clear on what do you need to be doing when. What do you do when you're first starting? How do you get those first clients? What do you need to be charging? All of those things that you can learn from someone who's been there before, and then having them show you, okay, now you want to introduce this next thing, whether that's group programs, online courses, or whatever it is. When do you do that? And what is the process so that you do things in the right order, have the biggest impact, and have the least amount of struggle?
Tami, are you a supporter of, before you really take those first few steps into entrepreneurship, of writing some kind of business plan, marketing plan, strategy for your new business? Or should you take those steps and things will fall into place as time progresses?
You never want to leave it up to chance, right? So I believe that every business needs some sort of business plan. Now, what that business plan looks like can be different based on the type of business and what you're putting the business plan together for. If you're coming out and doing like coaching, consulting, or other service-based business where you don't need to get funding from someone else, then you need a very, I'm going to call it simplistic, but it's very specific, detailed plan of what you are doing, who you are helping, how you're serving, what's your marketing plan, and the financials, of course, are always part of a business plan, and what that looks like. It does not have to be 50 pages of a business plan. If you are trying to go after funding and maybe you've got a product or something that you're launching and you need some funding behind that, then you're going to need a little bit more detailed plan. So I do believe you need a business plan. How detailed it is really depends on the type of business you're starting and what you're using that plan for.
Do you think that there is someone in their personal style, characteristics, knowledge, skills, something that makes that person wrong for considering going out and starting their own business?
Starting a business is not for everybody. So there are definitely people that I would say, you know what, this might not be for you. What I would look at is, what's your toleration for risk is one thing. What do you really want to accomplish? What do you want to be making? What's your overall bigger vision for your life? Because for some people, working for someone else is ideal. It's perfect for them. And starting a business is hard. It is hard work. It is one of the hardest things that people will do, but it is also very rewarding. And so it's what are you willing to put into it in order to get the results out of it that you want? I don't want to make it seem like this is the easiest thing someone will ever do. No, I mean, it's challenging from a mindset perspective because they always say if you want to know yourself better, become an entrepreneur because you go through roller coaster emotions every day. Having the support to help you through that is critical. And that's why it's even more important to know what you should be doing when, because that helps you to avoid some of those pitfalls.
Tami, since you've gone through that transition to entrepreneur, what do you wish you would have known that you know now 10 years ago to help you in making that transition easier, more successful?
Yeah, I'll say there's two things. One, I wish somebody had laid out, like, this is exactly what you need to do when in your business. And that wasn't something that I found many people do. And so I, like many other entrepreneurs, struggled a little bit with getting started, like trying different things. Does this work? Does that work? And not knowing what to do in that first year and the second year and the third year and where, based on where I'm at in the income level, what to introduce and how to pull other things in. So that's one thing that I definitely wish I had known earlier. The other thing is more of a mindset thing is get out of your own way. I think the biggest block we have sometimes is we are our own worst enemy and we struggle with getting out there and doing the things we need to be doing for lots of reasons. Fear of judgment, not feeling worthy of it, like wondering if we have the expertise and people going into imposter syndrome instead of just going and doing it and taking the action faster, making decisions faster is what's going to help you to get there and to have a more successful business faster because you want to get to cash flow as quickly as possible. And otherwise, you'll be one of the 90% of businesses that fail in the first 5 years because 82% of those fail because they do not have cash flow.
I've read someplace that maybe you don't quit your traditional corporate job right away, that you get some kind of consulting or contract work on the side before you take the final step in terms of that entrepreneurship. What's your thoughts about that? And is that any different in terms of what you need to do than just stopping your traditional job and going off and doing your entrepreneur role?
Yeah, I am a proponent of people starting while they're still working because there's a lot you have to work out in that first year and get clear in. And it all depends on where you're at financially. It depends on where you are from having the expertise in the marketplace. And so some things come into play in deciding when it's that right time to make the transition. But I'm a huge proponent of getting started while you're still working because it allows you that time to start learning because it's a very different thing to run a business than to work for somebody else. And so there's multiple pieces you've got to go through and having that a little bit of stability and income coming in while you're building your base and getting some additional revenues coming in from the business is a great thing. And as far as doing consulting or having other types of gigs on the side, I think there's time where that works. And then you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm cutting off the bridges. This is what I'm doing. I'm committed to making this business work and making that leap. But even I started my first year, I went through my coaching certification. I was still working full time. I was a vice president for a Fortune 100 company. I was already working a ton, doing this coaching certification on the side, building my business, working with clients. I'm glad I did that because it also taught me about being resilient and being very structured with my time because I also had 2 little girls at home who I wanted to spend a lot of time with. And so I was very structured. I had a school night, I called it, where I would go into my husband's office at that time. Now I actually have an office in his office. I would have that night to just work on my certification and my programs and what I was doing. And then I would have certain times dedicated on the weekends. And even after I left my corporate job, got to that point and made that decision, I still did some consulting because I had spent 20 years working in real estate investment management. I was well known in the industry and I had people reaching out to me saying, hey, can you consult us on this? And I was charging $400 an hour to do consultations for these organizations and companies that needed my expertise. I did a lot of those one-offs. I didn't get into like, I've got a 6-month gig. Because I wanted to focus, but I'm like, yeah, if you need 2 hours and I can help you get so much further with your project and what you have coming up, yeah, I'll give you 2 hours. And so I think there's different ways to be able to start the side hustle, to be able to do some consulting and things on the side. And there's a lot of great companies out there now that do the hourly. They're looking for resources with this specific expertise that are free to sign up for. And once you're a part of their program, they're just sending you these opportunities and you can decide, do I want to take this or not? And it's not like you're committing to a 3-week project. It's like a 1-hour call where you can share your expertise.
Tami, I think of interviewing for a traditional job or trying to sell your services as an entrepreneur. The process, the marketing is oftentimes very, very similar. And I'm wondering, again, whether you're that entrepreneur trying to sell your services or you're trying to sell yourself to a company for a position that they might have. How do you get your foot in the door on either one of those? How do you find the entrance to that company?
Yeah, great question, Bob. I think this is probably one of the things that new entrepreneurs struggle with the most because they're not used to having to go out and sell themselves. They're not used to having to go out and market themselves. When you're looking to get your foot in the door for another job, I mean, we know that like 80% of jobs, and probably even higher than that, are filled through network, through people that they already know. And so when you're looking for another job, you've got to be out there networking. It's not just posting your resume on a bunch of things and hoping that somebody will open the door. You have to be out there reaching out to companies that you want to work for, connecting with people there, because that's how majority of jobs are filled. The same is similar with starting your business. I always tell people like 99% of businesses, their first clients are coming from their network. And a lot of times when people start a business, they're like, oh, I want to go create these online things and try to find people that I don't know to buy my products. And yes, that will come. But remember, 99% of businesses are getting their first clients from their network. So start with who you know. And it's not about reaching out to people being like, hey, I want you to be my client. That's not what it's about. It's about connecting with people. Nobody knows you're getting this business started if you haven't told them. So first you've got to inform people of what this new business is and how you're helping people. So just communicating what that is. And then reaching out and saying, hey, who do you know that may need this service? Who do you know that may need the help with this specific thing? Is there someone you can connect me to? And so doing it from a genuine standpoint of you're trying to make connections initially and getting out there and networking at events and sharing more and more about what you do and how you are serving and helping people, because just going through and you're going to close someone so much faster when they come through a referral or a network versus when you're trying to talk to someone who knows nothing about you, that you've met on social media through some random thing. The touch points and the closing process takes a lot longer when it's a really cold lead versus a referral lead. So it's always a great place to start with the networking, on both sides, right? Whether you're looking for a job or you're looking to start your business, it's one of the first places you want to start.
Tami, I read someplace that with your resume or with your experience, again, whether you're selling yourself or selling the services that you want to provide, you should focus on the experience, on what's relevant to that role or that contract that you want, not necessarily what's relevant to the role you've had historically. What does that statement mean?
It means that you need to look at what they want, what the company hiring is looking for, and how do you fit your skill set into that role. So let me give you a specific example. One of the last transitions I made when I was in corporate was I moved from finance to technology. And a lot of people would think in making that transition, you have to start over because you're going from a completely different area. But what I used and the way that I positioned it to that organization is, listen, I have got all this experience. I know what the business needs from the technology. I've been a leader within these organizations for so many years, and you need someone to come in as a leader within your technology area who also has the relationships within the business and understands them, that will help your technology team advance so much faster. So, and they may not even known that's what they need at the time, right? They may have been just like, I need someone who understands developers and technology. And so being able to take your experience and preface it in a way that's going to resonate and advance the organization, advance the role of what you're looking to get into. Because in making that transition, I also increased my salary by 30%. I did not have to take a step back, which most people would think you have to do. And so knowing exactly what these roles need, how you can take your skill sets and help them in that and serve them in that way is also very similar to what you do when you're going out and selling your services. And you get to listen to what that person needs. You get to listen to what that person wants and fill in the blanks for them of how you're going to help them get there.
Tami, how might having a personal blog be beneficial to you, again, whether you're in your job search or you're starting your new business?
There's so many ways to get your message out. And I think with blogs, a lot of people like to read. A lot of people like to be able to see that. And, Bob, you've got your podcast here. And it's another form of getting your message out. And the more ways that you can service people, some people like to listen to the podcast. Some people like to go read the blog. You can even do the podcast if you're someone who likes to speak and then have somebody turn it into a blog. There's multiple ways that you can repurpose and reuse your content, which is, I think, what is important when you're in business is how do you get your message out to more people in more ways? And a blog is one of those ways.
You talked about one of the things in starting that new business that is a challenge is the whole time management issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true as well in a more traditional job search as well. How might you bring more organizational or structure to, again, either that job search or starting your new business so that you can maximize your time?
Time blocking is really key in helping you to focus on specific things and high value things. So with starting a business, one of the things that we look at, and it's one of the trainings that I do for people that I take through my boot camp, which is like the foundations of getting your business started. One of the pre-trainings I do that is time management, because you've got to be clear on how to manage your time. And we talk about what are the most high value things that you need to be doing, focusing on those, making those a priority. So whether that's your reach outs and follow-ups, your sales conversations, the things that are going to bring income into your business, time blocking those things into your calendar so they're set aside and you know exactly when you are doing them. I shared how I time blocked when I was going through my coaching certification and starting my business, how I would have certain times on Wednesday evenings for my school, and then I'd have certain times on Saturdays for my clients. And being able to be really structured and focused around that makes it really clear. So when you sit down at that time, if this is your hour for follow-up calls and reach outs, like, okay, this is my hour. These are the things that I need to do in this hour to get the most benefit and to reach the most people in this hour. So those are some of the little tips I have for time management. There's so much more we could go into there, but I know we have limits of time here.
Tami, any books or other resources that you'd recommend to someone going through their own transition? Again, whether they decide to become an entrepreneur or a more traditional job?
Well, I'll start with my book.
Okay, let's do that.
So my book is You Already Made the Decision. You're just not happy with it. And this is a guide on how to make better decisions or live with the ones you've made. More than half the book is dedicated to transitions. Like, how do you make those big transitions in your life? How do you make those big changes? And I talk about a formula that I've created called the Clarity Trifecta of what you need to be doing, the answers you need to be getting in order to help you make a better transition. So whether that's starting a business or leaving the job for something else, you can apply it to so many different areas of your life.
Tami, if our listeners only remember three things as they go through their own personal transition, what are those three things that you want them to remember?
First one is just make the decision. Make the decision of what you really want to do. Commit to it. Commit to the decision and getting the guidance you need to help figure it out. Because staying in indecision is a disservice to yourself, and you want to be able to start moving forward. Doesn't mean you have to take 100 steps in the next day, but just initially commit to making a decision of what you want to do and what's right for you. I always like to say, get inspired by what you want to do, the inspired action you want to take. So whatever decision it is, make sure it's something that's going to drive you and inspire you so that you can come out of this feeling revived, feeling renewed, and with a sense of energy. Because especially when you're starting your business, you need to be driven by what you want to do. And the third takeaway I'll share with your listeners is you just need a little bit of courage to take that first step. You just have to know what the first step is. And so once you decide, getting clear on what is that, just the first step. You don't have to have everything figured out. Just take that initial step. And when you take that first step, the next step becomes a little more clear. And then you can take the next step. And then the next step becomes more clear. And then your momentum starts to build. And that's what will really make a difference for you.
Tami, thank you on behalf of our listeners. You helped inspire, I'm sure, many to think about that first step, whether it's a new position or being an entrepreneur. And you gave some really great tips and techniques in terms of after that first step. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the input that you provided. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. It was great being here with you.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. We're working in unprecedented times as the world responds to the recent COVID-19 crisis. The fact is that even those who are not in transition understand it could be right around the corner, next month, or a year from now. The purpose of these episodes are to give listeners support and the critical tools to adjust with the winds, wherever they come. I'll continue to introduce you to guests who have successfully, perhaps gracefully, or without too many battle scars, survived their own obstacle courses, and can share useful information on how to steady your ship or your world in this uncertainty. If today's message was helpful to you, please share it on social media. If you have any questions or podcast ideas for future conversations, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I appreciate your time you're investing in sharing these important conversations with me, my guests, and others who are going through life transition. Transitions between jobs, life stages, new entrepreneurial ventures, or whatever life brings. Change is constant. The more prepared you are for it, the better and easier the change will occur. Thank you again. This is your host, Bob Gerst. See you at our next episode of People in Transition.